Thousands of people in Medellin took part in a sit-in protest against the decision by the Colombian Attorney General's office to suspend the mayors of Medellin and Ibagué. On Wednesday, Russia's defense ministry released more information regarding U.S.-funded biological laboratories in Ukraine. The Palestinian National Authority said Thursday that it has rejected an Israeli request for a joint investigation into the death of journalist Shirin Abu Akleh during a military raid by occupation forces in the Palestinian West Bank city of Jenin. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the Telsur studios in Havana. We begin with the news. Thousands of people in Medellin took part in a sit-in protest against the decision by the Colombian Attorney General's office to suspend the mayors of Medellin and Ibagué. The public demonstration was by the mayor of Medellin, Daniel Quintero, who, together with Daniel Hurtado, mayor of Ibagué, were dismissed by Attorney General Margarita Cabello for their alleged participation in political activities. This sit-in took place at the square of the administrative center La Alpujarra in downtown Medellin, where dozens of social organizations and thousands of people expressed their rejection to the measure while ratifying their support for the two mayors. In his speech, Quintero said the measure is an attempt to take away rights and the self-determination from citizens. In Ecuador, the hunger strike by 30 teachers to demand a salary increase and reforms to the education law is in its 10th day. This Thursday, the teachers on voluntary fasting will go to the Constitutional Court that will debate the executive's veto on education law reforms that would set the salaries of teachers at the same level of other public employees. Meanwhile, another group of teachers will mobilize to support the hunger strike carried out by their colleagues. The teachers say that if the response of the Constitutional Court is not favorable, they will promote protests in several regions of the country with the support of various social sectors. In Brazil, social organizations and political parties mobilized to the federal Supreme Court to demand recognition of the genocide of the Afro-descendant population in the country. Around 250 organizations take to the streets on Wednesday to file a lawsuit due to the criminalization of the Afro-Brazilian population by state security forces. According to figures, out of the 2,700 victims of police abuses, 2,200 are black, which is equivalent to 81%. Brazil's Afro-descendant community continues to be the main target of police interventions resulting in death. On Wednesday, the Peruvian parliament censored former President Martín Vizcarra and disqualified him from holding public office for 5 years. The full Congress approved the draft of legislative resolution that disqualifies the former president with 67 votes in favor, 5 against, and 15 abstentions for having had links with companies in the sector during his tenure as Minister of Transport and Communications. The Peruvian Congress had already voted to disqualify the former head of state for 10 years in April 2021 for having been secretly vaccinated against COVID-19 in the case known as VaccineGate. According to Peruvian law, being disqualified to hold public office only applies for a maximum of 10 years, so the new penalty is not added to the first. On Wednesday, the Peruvian Congress passed a law that, according to experts and congresspeople, is detrimental to the quality standards of higher education. The law modifies the composition of the Board of Directors of the National Superintendents of Higher Education, known as SUNEDU. Up to now, the board was made up of independent professionals elected in public competition. But with the new law, it will be made up of 3 representatives of public and private universities. This, in essence, represents a conflict of interests. Several experts have said that the new law reduces the possibilities of improving basic quality standards to be met by universities that apply for a license to operate.
In fact, this university counter-reform only debilitates SUNEDO. This is a step backwards regarding higher education standards in Peru. I voted against it. I am a full-hearted advocate of SUNEDO. I do not believe in that false concept of autonomy promoted by the Dean of San Marco. The redesigning of the SUNEDO board will not only allow the interests of certain groups to get through the back door, the interests of those who were used to manage universities as if those were their own property.
Public hearings for the landmark trial into the massacre of around 200 indigenous workers protesting plantation living conditions is underway in Argentina nearly 100 years after the atrocity took place. The Napalpi massacre took place on July 19, 1924 in the municipality of Napalpi in the northern Argentine province of Chaco, perpetrated by police, gendarmes, and settlers. The Argentinian government said the trial aims at reviewing the evidence provided by the Human Rights Secretariat into the massacre of members of the Toba and Mocovi peoples. In 2019, the massacre was declared a crime against humanity by the judiciary. Authorities said it will be a trial for truth that will not have defendants as they are deceased, but will include testimonies from the descendants, survivors, and officials from the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights.
In Argentina, on July 1924, in the northern province of Chaco, a massacre took place where around 500 people from the Com and Mocoit ethnic groups were killed at gunpoint by 100 policemen from the province of Chaco. These people were protesting plantation living conditions.
Cuban rescue workers and firefighters found another body under the rubble of the Saratoga Hotel. Meanwhile, one person is still missing after the accident that occurred last Friday. With this finding, the death toll rose to 44 people and almost 100 injured after the explosion on May 6th caused by a gas leak. Meanwhile, Fire Department head Luis Guzman reaffirmed that rescue teams continue working in very difficult conditions due to the instability of the building. In a visit to the site, the first secretary of the Communist Party of Cuba in the province of Havana, Luis Antonio Torres Iribar, confirmed that efforts are focused on finding everyone trapped under the rubble and that professional rescue teams, high government representatives, members of the armed forces, and other institutions remain at the site of the accident. We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. On Wednesday, Russia's defense ministry released more information regarding U.S.-funded biological laboratories in Ukraine. At a press conference, the head of the Radiation, Chemical, and Biological Defense Forces of the Russian Armed Forces, Igor Kirillov, revealed that Ukraine is in fact a testing ground for Western countries to develop components of bioweapons and to test new drugs. Kirillov accused the U.S. government of being the driving force behind military biological activities in Ukraine and of establishing legislative guarantees for financing said activities through executive bodies. The Russian Defense Ministry also gave details of experiments conducted by the U.S. Defense Department in a psychiatric hospital in Kharkiv, which mainly involved a group of severely malnourished men between 40 and 60 years of age. Many European countries have seen record high inflation rates and soaring prices as backfire fueled by Western sanctions on Russia amid the Ukrainian crisis. Denmark's inflation hit a near four-decade high in April as energy and food prices increased drastically, official figures showed on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Greek inflation rose 10.2% year-on-year in April, the highest rate since 1994, according to official figures. Keith Anderson, Chief Executive Officer at Scottish Power, warned that the energy bills of British families could hit nearly £3,000 in October, and 10 million homes will be unable to afford heating this winter, according to a news report by the Daily Mail on Monday. The London Fire Department also said on Monday that the United Kingdom has recently seen a surge in fire accidents as some residents tried to save money by burning wood for heating. In Finland Thursday, the President and the Prime Minister made a joint statement saying that Finland should apply for NATO membership as soon as possible, and this was confirmed by the Finnish Chancellor Pekka Haavisto before the European Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee.
Should Finland decide to apply, the accession of Finland would strengthen the security and stability of the Baltic Sea region and Northern Europe. Finland is a regional security provider and would further strengthen NATO as a future ally.
Inflation in the United States slowed down in April after 7 months of relentless gains, a tentative sign that price increases may be peaking while still imposing a financial strain on U.S. households. The Labor Department said on Wednesday that consumer prices jumped 8.3% last month in relation to a year before and was below the 8.5% year-over-year surge in March, which was the highest rate since 1981. Food banks across the U.S. say these economic conditions are pushing a higher demand for their support at a time when their labor and delivery costs are climbing and donations are decreasing. The problem has grown to this point that the last week President Joe Biden called for a conference on hunger, nutrition, and health in September, the first since 1969.
People before me worked till they almost died, and I wanted to be able to retire and just have a little bit of enjoyment. So I retired at 60 originally. It can give you some sleepless nights.
So as food prices are higher, as more people are in need of our services, we're seeing decreases in some places that are really impacting us too. Like decreased donations. A majority of our members are seeing a decrease in donations. Decrease in government supplied commodities at a time when we need it the most, and decrease in retail and manufacturing donations too. So it's a perfect storm.
Democrats tried and failed to push forward legislation to guarantee abortion rights nationwide as Republicans and one Democrat in the Senate blocked an effort to enshrine the landmark Roe v. Wade precedent in federal law. With 51 senators opposed and 49 in support, Democrats fell short of the 60 votes they would have needed to take up a sweeping legislation to ensure abortion access and explicitly bar a wide array of restrictions. The action came after a leaked Supreme Court draft opinion thrust the issue into the political spotlight, suggesting that the court may be on the brink of overturning the nearly 50-year-old ruling that legalized abortion and leaving states to decide whether women would have the right to terminate their pregnancies or not.
Vote, and sadly, the Senate failed to stand in defense of a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And let's be clear, the majority of the American people believe in defending a woman's right, her choice, to decide what happens to her own body. And this vote clearly suggests that the Senate is not where the majority of Americans are on this issue.
In the United States, a fire fueled by intense ocean winds barreled into a gated community overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Laguna Niguel, burning at least 20 homes in the latest sign of the drastic effects that climate change and drought are having on California. The coastal fire broke out on a cool but gusty day and spread rapidly, cresting up a canyon before burning huge homes. Hundreds of residents fled the flames while firefighters spent the night in house-to-house battles trying to prevent the blaze from spreading deeper into the subdivision. According to Orange County Supervisor Katrina Foley, the fire has not been contained, and a local emergency order remained in place in Laguna Niguel as of late Wednesday night. The destruction underscored the year-round danger of fires in Southern California, even in cool conditions. Unlike many wildfires in the region, the coastal fire was fanned not by Santa Ana winds from the desert, but by strong gusts coming from the Pacific Ocean. We have more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us. Hello and welcome back. The Palestinian National Authority said Thursday that it rejected an Israeli request for a joint investigation into the death of journalist Shireen Abu Akleh during a military raid by occupation forces in the Palestinian West Bank city of Jenin. The statement was made by Palestinian Civil Affairs Director Hussein al-Sheikh on his Twitter account. The official said Israel requested a joint investigation and that we hand over to them the bullet that killed journalist Shireen, and we have refused. We have said that our investigation will be absolutely independent and that we will inform her family, the United States, Qatar, and all official authorities of the results of that investigation. Sheikh said that both physical evidence and witnesses indicate that Shireen was killed by Israeli special troops.
We hold the Israeli occupation authorities fully responsible for killing her, and they cannot hide the truth with this crime, and this crime should not go unpunished. And we point out that we have refused and rejected the joint investigation with the Israeli authorities because they are the ones who committed the crime and because we don't trust them, and we will immediately go to the International Criminal Court to prosecute the criminals.
In Egypt, the Arab League condemned the murder of Al Jazeera journalist during a crackdown by Israeli occupation forces in Palestine. The League of Arab States indicated that they condemned the assassination of Shireen Abu Akleh in Palestine by alleged gunfire from Israeli forces. The League in a statement stressed that they condemned the assassinations of journalists, emphasizing that these are crimes against the freedom of expression and the media, while demanding an exhaustive investigation into the journalist's murder. In this sense, they attributed responsibility for the accident to the Israeli authorities and demanded that the perpetrators be punished. Moreover, dozens protested after the killing of Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh by the Israeli forces while she was covering an Israeli military raid in the northern occupied West Bank city of Jenin. Protesters were holding Palestinian flags, posters with photos of the veteran Al Jazeera journalist. Abu Akleh died of a gunshot to the head while doing her job. The broadcaster and two reporters who were with her blamed the Israeli forces. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh has strongly condemned the deliberate targeting of Shireen Abu Akleh. Thus, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman described this criminal act by the Zionist regime as clear proof of the regime's lack of commitment to the role and place of the press, the media, and journalists in promoting awareness for the public opinion. Likewise, the Palestinian ambassador to the UN, Riyad Mansour, says that Arab countries at the United Nations called for an independent international probe into what they called the assassination of Al Jazeera's journalist. European Union Special Envoy for Afghanistan Thomas Nicholson said on Thursday the Taliban shutdown of girls' education showed they are not listening to the Afghan people and posed a major hurdle to international recognition of the new government.
To be a government that isn't really listening to its people, what women have been asking about is not instructions on how to dress, it's about how to feed the family, it's about access to schools, it's about access to health, it's about having an opportunity to work. So I think if the schools open relatively soon throughout the country at all levels for boys and girls, this could be a positive step forward. It is not the only thing. It will not lead to recognition the day after. There are also issues regarding many other human rights, also women's rights, minority rights, security and other issues. But it could be a first and a positive step, and it would be a dramatic shift in a way from what we see as a more backward-going trend, a regressive trend in many areas.
The Lebanese cabinet met at the presidential palace in Baghdad ahead of the parliamentary elections on Sunday. The parliament voted on Sunday will have to tackle overdue reforms required for the international assistance the country desperately needs after Lebanon struck a conditional deal with the International Monetary Fund for the $3 billion aid package. Incoming lawmakers will face many challenges in a country where there is little consensus on a roadmap for recovery. Since 2019, Lebanon has suffered an unprecedented economic decline caused by decades of mismanagement and corruption. The state's bankruptcy has hampered imports of basic items, including food, medicine, and fuel. According to the United Nations, more than 80% of people have fallen into poverty. Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani met Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi in Tehran on Thursday as talks failed on bringing the United States back into the 2015 nuclear deal between Tehran and major powers. The one-day visit by Qatar's Emir came as the European Union's coordinator for the nuclear talks, Enrique Mora, held a second day of meetings in Tehran with Iran's chief negotiator Ali Bagheri. During his meeting with Ibrahim Raisi, Al Thani called for more dialogue to settle the standoff. Washington unilaterally abandoned the nuclear deal under then-President Donald Trump in 2018 and reimposed sweeping economic sanctions, prompting Iran to begin rolling back its own commitments. President Joe Biden has said he wants the U.S. to return to the agreement, but on and off talks on the mechanics have been installed since March. Shanghai's government said they are helping key manufacturers and delivery services back to work, even as 2 million residents remain confined to their homes for nearly a month and a half. An official of Shanghai postal regulators stated on Thursday that more than 1 million orders for deliveries are coming every day. The official said the number was about 1/6 of that before the lockdown. The suspension of delivery services left residents under lockdown in need of food, medicine, and other daily necessities. Shanghai Health Commission on Thursday reported more than 1,000 new cases over the past 24 hours and 5 new deaths, raising the death toll from the recent outbreak to 565. Residents had to undergo multiple rounds of self-testing using antigen test kits, as well as nucleic acid tests, which has generated a large demand for the kits. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on the website at Telstar English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telstar English, I am Dio Martin. Thank you for watching.